Thank you. Good evening. Welcome to members, officers, and those members of the public here and at the meeting, and those who are joining us virtually. This is an extraordinary full council meeting, Thursday, January the 9th. Can we have apologies for absence, please?
Thank you, Chair. Apologies have been received from Councillor Whitaker, Councillor Locke, Councillor Bushby, Councillor Tinsley, Councillor Gibson, Councillor Hackett, Councillor Inch, Councillor Gubb, Councillor Ford, and Councillor Johns.
Thank you very much. We have no public speakers tonight. Item 2. Item 3, declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations? I don't think we do. Thank you. Item 4, we have no Part B, Part 2 today. Item 5, to consider correspondence. I haven't been handed any correspondence. This was a fairly lately set up meeting, so there's nothing in item 5. Item 6, the main item on the agenda this evening, the English Devolution White Paper, supplement pages 2 to 129. I'll hand over to our Chief Executive first of all.
Thanks, Chair. So, members, in your report pack, you will have had a copy of the English Devolution White Paper that was released by the government on Monday, the 16th of December. We've also included a copy of the letter from the Secretary of State Minister Jim McMahon, setting out the ambitions for the government on devolution, as well as identifying the criteria for moving forward on the priority programme for devolution and the criteria for that. We've also attached a copy of some of the information from the District Councils network, which summarises what's contained in that white paper. So I'm just going to kind of briefly cover some of that. And at the end then we'll hand over to the Leader of Council, Councillor James, who will sum up and add some commentary to it. So as you will have noted, if you've read through the actual paper, it covers devolution framework, which is a change to the existing devolution bid and deal arrangements. Talks in detail around mayors and mayoral combined authorities, talks about and identifies what a strategic authority is, and then goes on to talk about local government reorganisation, some details around local government finance, local government audit and accountability, and finalising with things and changes proposed to the standards for members. But tonight we're really going to concentrate on 2 areas of the paper. The rest is for debate at a later time, and that is around devolution and local government reorganisation. So some of the key messages and the direction of travel, I'm sure you'll have picked up from the paper. The first being the government's intention to create what's termed strategic authorities, and strategic authorities are regional-based authorities of a large geographic area, which have devolved functions to them, which are regional-based, so regional spatial strategy, regional transport infrastructure, and the like. So if you think of the models that are currently used in Manchester, East Midlands, for example, they're examples of strategic authorities, and that's a new terminology in this white paper. As you will know, under the previous arrangements, Devon and Torbay are already well on the way, and almost in place is Devon and Torbay Development Authority. That brings with it certain but more limited powers devolved from government than would be the case with mayoral combined authorities. Under the new structure, the existing county combined authority would be known as a foundation authority. So at the kind of bottom tier of the changes. So with the expectation and ambition, particularly from government, that a mayoral combined authority would be established. And as those arrangements become more embedded, become evolved, and become more mature, more and more powers are devolved to that organisation. The ambition of government, as you will have read in the white paper, is to have all unitary councils or unitary councils that cover all of England. So currently there are 21 Shire county areas, so 21 county council areas with a number of district, city, borough councils sat below them. So the ambition is to convert all of those into not single unitary councils, but unitary councils within those geographies. With the remit then that there would be fewer councillors and fewer councillors. And the ambition is to achieve both that enhanced devolution and reorganisation across England within this current Parliament. And there's a hope and expectation that all of that will be done on a collaborative basis. So local authorities working together to achieve those ambitions, whether they're combined authorities or unitary councils, and they are distinct and two separate things, although because they're all covered in the white paper, it has become a little bit confusing as some of them are moving in tandem. I'll come back to in a second. The other elements that they've suggested they would prefer to avoid is considering any boundary changes. Obviously, boundary changes fall under the remit of the Boundary Commission, and obviously if you start discussing changes to boundaries, that does involve a greater level of resource and a greater level of time. And obviously the government are minded to move towards devolution at pace. So they prefer, if possible, to avoid boundary changes. So any unitary councils, mayoral combined authorities on existing boundaries. So there's a number of key dates and potentially two possible approaches to change through devolution and local government reorganisation. Tomorrow, the 10th of January, being the first key date for county councils to submit to government an expression of interest to move at a faster pace towards devolution, in which case the requirement there may be a requirement to postpone county council elections. We already know that Devon County Council approved today to request to move forward on the priority programme and request that the May elections are postponed. By the end of January, we expect the Minister and Government to have made an announcement as to whether those counties have expressed an interest to be on that programme, as to whether though they are on the programme and the elections in May are postponed or not. The expectation then through March and May is detailed proposals for change to be submitted to MHCLG, working with the government and government officials on that programme for change. Should County Council be on that programme, MHCLG will lead a consultation process, so it's not the County Councils consulting. MHCLG will combine all those county areas on that priority programme and lead the consultation process. Some of this then starts to depend because whilst the mayoral arrangements could be on that programme, there could also be arrangements for local government reorganisation at the same time, and in Minister McMahon's letter, it talks about if reorganisation is required to unlock greater devolution in a place. So in May 26th, then we would expect mayoral elections to take place on a shadow basis, and then by April 20, and possibly shadow unitary council or councils elections to take place. Obviously, that's subject to different arrangements in different places, with the expectation then for a go live date in April 2027. So what may also be working alongside, instead of, or as well as, for two-tier areas such as us, by the end of January, we expect to have a letter from the government that will be sent to the county council and the district councils, city councils, whatever the arrangements are within the area, inviting all two-tier areas to submit proposals for local government reorganisation. So then the May elections may or may not, May county elections may or may not be postponed, but there's an expectation then that by the end of March, we think it's the end of March, we haven't been given the exact time frames yet, initial proposals for reorganisation to be submitted to MHCLG. And the expectation is that letter that comes to us in January will outline the details of what those proposals should look like, what details they should contain, and the framework, criteria, etc. The expectation then under these arrangements is that by the autumn of this year, full business case submissions should go into MHCLG for reorganisation in the area. And then we expect the current district council elections scheduled for May 27 to be replaced probably by shadow unitary council elections. April 2028 being the potential go live date then for the new unitary arrangements, whatever shape they may take. So just a couple of key numbers and stats you will have heard in the media and through the documentation. So the expectation from government is that a mayoral combined authority, the size of that authority would be around 1.5 million residents. Similarly, the expectation for a unitary council is around 500,000 residents. Now, there has been many questions posed as to whether those numbers, A, do they have upper limits, or B, are they fixed? The government has said, particularly on unitary councils, that's not an absolute number. They would accept different propositions or proposals if the business case and criteria meets and stacks up. So just for information, bearing in mind those two levels, Devon currently has around 800,000 residents, Torbay 140,000, Plymouth 260. So obviously both Plymouth and Torbay as current unitary councils don't meet the new thresholds, but that's not to say anything will change, and Cornwall 570,000. So in terms of meeting the government's criteria for a mayoral arrangement, it would have to cover the whole peninsula, so Devon, Plymouth, Torbay and Cornwall. I won't get into the details of what political arrangements and things have been said around that right now. There's details in the white paper around criteria and functionality, and understandably you'd expect, given the current financial sustainability of some councils, the expectation is that those new councils would have a key functional economic area, take consideration of travel to work areas. Any revised arrangement shouldn't leave any islands, so not any small districts or other authorities left on their own. The geography needs to cover all. And as I said, they must be sustainable. So in terms of some draft recommendations for you to consider, again, so approving the leader to sign on behalf of Torridge a letter to the Minister McMahon, setting out a number of principles if that's what you're minded to do. We do not support a single unitary council for Devon. That being the right option, unless, of course, notwithstanding the fact that no evaluation, data analysis, etc. is currently being taken, no consultations being undertaken, and considering the impacts on residents, communities, business, staff, etc. We do not support the postponement of county council elections scheduled for May, that they should take place, and that a new democratically elected county council should respond to future arrangements for Devon. Noting the government's ambition for directly elected mayors, strategic authorities, mayoral or combined authorities across England, although that currently Devon and Torbay are not in a position to progress that at this point in time. Equally recognising the government's ambition to reforming and restructuring local government, especially in two-tier areas. However, full and proper consideration of the options and opportunities for Devon would need to be based on data, evidence, analysis, evaluation, and consideration, impacts of staff, communities, businesses, and visitors. And finally, the leader, myself as Chief Executive, to continue to work with the other Devon districts, leaders and Chief Executives to explore options for change in light of the government's direction of travel for local government reform, which may also involve other local authorities, as you would expect in Devon and Torbay, as well as possibly Plymouth and Cornwall. And that any proposals would obviously be subject to approval of our full council. I'll hand you over to the leader.
As I said earlier, I think we need to concentrate on the timescale and what's before us. This afternoon, I've just received from the District Council Network Warwickshire's approach, and I noticed that the Devon districts statement, which you all had last Friday evening, is now on the DCN list as well. And it's, as with Hertfordshire, there is a general feeling that postponing the county elections is not the right way to go. And as we know, within the government's guidelines, they are saying that they should only go ahead if there's full agreement, or they should only be cancelled if there's full agreement by all parties. And it's quite obvious at the moment when you look at, and there has been discussions that I haven't been involved in, and some of the other district council leaders haven't been involved in. But we know Devon Cornwall are keen to have their own mayor, and if they can't have their own mayor, they want an assembly based on the Welsh model. We know at the moment Plymouth want to stay a unitary in their own right, but they are looking at, they need to expand possibly into South Hams, and we don't know that Exeter would like to be unitary and would like to take some of East Devon. From my point of view, the only real argument is where does it leave Torridge? And what can we do to really support Torridge? I'm not completely opposed to a mayoral situation, but it depends on what it delivers for us in North Devon. As I said earlier, we start discussions next week. Monday, there is a Devon District Forum meeting, which is all the district leaders. And on Tuesday, we're meeting with North Devon leaders to see if we've got a combined thought process on where we're going, which will follow the DDF meeting, where we may well get a much better idea of what the different districts. The powerhouse for Devon is definitely, whether we like it or not, is Exeter and the surrounding area and Plymouth and the surrounding area. What we have to decide is, are we welcome with any of them? Is any of them going to be beneficial to us? I would love, as I said earlier, the alternative of a Barnstable, Bideford base, Northern Devon. We haven't got the numbers. We probably haven't got the economic drive at this moment. But when you look at all the things we're looking to do with the, you know, North Devon's got one of the largest collections of pharmaceutical drugs and stuff like that in the country. We've got the innovation centre. We've got the money coming to do all the improvements within Torridge itself. But in some ways, it's just beyond the curve a little bit, is that we're not in that position. So I'm asking you today just to concentrate on what we need to do for tomorrow. And we see the recommendations, and basically, along with all the other districts, and many of the other districts throughout the country, we feel that postponing the election is not a good idea. And the criteria from the government did state that it has to have all those bodies that are involved on board with one view. And there is not one view at the moment. The other ones is basically, in doing so, we're not supporting cancelling the elections. As I say, I'm not completely against the mayor. It's going to depend on who you get and what the support within it. We have an interesting situation where Andy Burnham is very popular, and I spoke to leaders from that area who are full of praise about that works. And everybody said Andy Street was really good, but he got voted out in the election. That's democracy, and that is the one thing we should all retain, is democracy. None of this backdoor fiddling, is simple democracy. Where do the people fit into this? Where does our residents fit in? And until we actually know how it's going to affect us, which will come a little bit from the letter we get from Jim McHone on the end of January, I think we should go with the recommendations, and then we start discussions with the other districts as of Monday of where Torridge fits into this. And I'm just going to keep it simple. Sorry, Julianne, you want to?
They keep talking about postponement of this election. Do they have a date at which they want to hold the election? I mean, postponement. A postponement would suggest that it was for a fixed time. How long are they talking about postponing this election?
The government at the moment said that it can only be postponed to 26, so that's 1 year.
Right.
However, if you postpone them because you haven't got everything in place, do you then allow an election when you haven't finished doing all you're going to do? But at the moment, the government is saying postpone for 1 year to 26.
It seems to me that really what they're trying to do is cancel it rather than postpone it.
But well, if you're cancelling, why do you go then? You're still gonna, you know, do you have an election, or do you and get a new mandate from the community of what they feel about all this reorganisation, or do you, well, you can't cancel them. They've got to take place. The question is there good enough reason to postpone them for a year? And many of us don't feel there is a good enough reason.
Councillor Brenton, I think you were.
Thank you, Chair. I should be very brief, and afterwards we will have to leave because Annie's identical twin sister had a serious accident before Christmas. She broke her spine, and she's in the John Ratcliffe Hospital in Oxford. So we're heading off there as soon as we possibly can. Oh, fellow councillors, if you hang around long enough, it'll all come up again. So this was all debated like 30 years ago. And here it is again. However, I've had the privilege of having a conversation with Tudor Evans and Luke Pollard a few days ago. And this is a general thinking. So Cornwall stays as it is a unitary. Plymouth will expand eastwards, probably, well, almost certainly really, stay as a unitary. Exeter will expand and stay as a unitary. And the rest of Devon, that's where the debate lies, whether it should be 2 unitaries or 1. But basically, that's the thinking going forward as a viable option for the system of reorganization. And the advice given to me was embrace it as quick as you can, or you will lose out financially. So you can read that into whatever you like on that one. But that's politics for you, I'm afraid. That's the way it works. So that's all I have to say on that one. So I'm afraid we do have to go. It's fortunate that there it is.
Yes.
Well, for interest of keeping things simple, I'd like to propose that we adopt this statement and make that as a recommendation. This is how we proceed.
Sorry, yes.
Yeah, very happy to second that proposal.
Yeah,
I thought you might do, yes. Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick point, really, probably not a great one, but why is the word note on point 3 and recognise on point 4, I wonder, because recognise to me implies agreement to or consent with. It would be much easier for me to go along with the proposal, providing that recognise we put away and replace with note.
We have as an amendment.
I think it's inevitable.
Yeah.
So we've got to embrace it, recommend it, or recognise it, whatever word you want to use. I've been in trouble with before with using the word.
Yes.
Yes, Chair, thank you. There's a lot to be said with this, to being either in the boat or inside the tent or whichever you like to call it. A member of Parliament said to me quite recently that there are many other members of Parliament up there in Westminster who haven't actually smelt the coffee yet and really woken up to the reality of the size of the government's majority and the desire and determination of government to press ahead with certain things that they either hold dearly or decide they want to do. And because of the size of their majority, opposition has little effect. And indeed, where you're looking down here in the southwest, which is not an area greatly favoured by members who form government anyway, half of them probably don't know where it is. And they certainly don't understand the lifestyle down here. They will actually pay even less attention to any protest, kickback, or whatever from here. And there's an element, and I'm happy to stand here as a Conservative and say this. There is an element of looking with wide open eyes and saying, what has happened here? In my former profession in the military, whenever we did planning sequence or plans, there was always a question at the end in the sequence that we had to consider. And it was called number question 4. And question 4 was always, what has changed? So you do all your planning and everything else, and then at the end, you revisit it. And you say, is the question still the same at the beginning as it is at the end? And the situation here is it is changed. We can hear our leader rumbling on about the combined county authority and where Devon's position was that, and now Devon seemed to be swung behind a map. Well, somebody in Exeter has looked at the list, has got to question 4 and said, what's changed? Well, the government's changed. The agenda's changed. The size and the ability of the government to impose has changed. And they said, right, actually, it's pretty futile. Objecting, we might as well actually look at working with. We don't necessarily like it all, but let's work with and make it work. And that is where government, that is where Devon is coming from. Devon turned around and said, fine, we can have elections this year, but actually everybody getting new people, getting their feet under the table will slow the process. But we'll be ending up having more elections next year or the year after. And by the way, a suite of county council elections in Devon costs over £1 million to roll out. For what? For a government that's not going to be interested in listening to whether you've got a new suite of councillors who are pushing back. So I would just say, just do the question 4. Open your eyes, have a look. The situation has changed. And the world that we're having to work within has changed. And all of that goes with it. I don't have any problems, particularly with everything on there. I don't think that actually going ahead with elections now, in the circumstances that we now find ourselves in, will actually be very useful functionally towards getting to where the government is requiring us to go. Because you're talking about probably, I have no doubt, and certainly the people on the other side of the table will be hopeful of new people, although actually reform, I understand, may well actually upset some of your plans. So there are new people to actually get under their feet under the table, and all the process of finding their way, not really the best team for doing a functional job on actually sorting out what comes next. Because this government is going to push it. I don't like it, but I understand reality when it stares me in the face. And that's where we are.
Thank you, Councillor Newton. I believe Councillor Bright has come up first.
Well, thank you, Chair. Yeah, in the earlier part of the presentation, it mentions shadow unitary council elections. What is that? And what does it do? That's what I wanted to know. Because that's happening in 2 years' time. That really is a question as to whether we have an election now or not. Because whoever won this year, then next year, that's a bit pointless. But it doesn't really explain any details of that.
Yeah, so a shadow unitary council election would be a year in advance of a unitary council coming into being. And the purpose of doing that is that you have an elected council to lead to develop the new council arrangements, to set a strategic plan, to start develop and consolidate the budgets of the organisations that come together, make arrangements for combining the council tax, so getting the new council ready for that start date. So rather than a number of district councils just trying to come together, a new elected council to develop the arrangements for that new council.
Are you happy with that?
Oh, so is there any reason why we couldn't just have the county elections as expected and then use that 4 years to try and use their mandate to govern what's going to happen for this combined authority at the end, and let the county council's role come from there? Is that not hitting the same point?
So there's two separate arrangements. The mayoral county or the mayoral combined authority is distinct from the unitary council. They're two separate arrangements. So there's not a set of mayoral combined authority councillors. It's just a mayor and ordinarily the leaders of the constituent unitary authorities within the geographic area of that combined authority. So say, for example, the mayoral authority covers Devon and Torbay and Plymouth. They retain their existing unitary status and Cornwall comes in. So then you'd have a mayor and 4 leaders of those upper tier authorities that form that mayoral combined authority. Below that, then you'd have whatever combination of unitary councils. So at the moment, obviously, you've got Cornwall, Plymouth, and Torbay, and then there's the rest of Devon, which could be 1, 2, 3, yet to be determined number of councils. So there are different arrangements. So there's not a set of councillors that sit on a set of elected members that make up the combined authority. So in terms of what you're suggesting, that doesn't work. So you're postponed so that the county councillors don't necessarily set. It's a new organisation. So if it's a new unitary council, it's a new organisation that starts. So it's not rolling forward what's currently in place and just changing the lines. It becomes a new council.
Councillor Haynes, I think.
Well,
you
can I
were-
just come back with
Oh,
one
sorry.
more bit? Yeah, so why are we not just letting this finish at a 4-term, like a 4-year cycle? Why are we trying to interrupt both the district council elections and the county elections, but and landing somewhere in between? I mean, it seems more sense to try and line up with one of those at least, and then you save yourself a whole bunch of elections to me, but maybe I'm looking at it too
I think
simplistically.
some of the confusion's come about because the government's doing exactly what they said they wouldn't do. Is they wouldn't do devolution and local government reorganisation at the same time. So at the moment, we're trying to deal with the local government reorganisation in so much as setting up unitaries and things like that, which will all then become part of it later down the road, part of the mayoral combination. So it's the fact, and it is confusing, is that they've put the two together and they don't actually work together very well. But you could argue to end up with the end result is you need to do the first bit, which is the reorganisation. And I think just picking up on Councillor Newton's point about the tent, when I know what tent we're sitting in, you know, we're not against the mayoral things. Some of us have been thinking that is the way it's going to go, so we're not completely against it. The thing we're a little bit, and I've been quite supportive of the CCA, which is why I've ended up on audit. If you saw my account, you would think, what the hell is he doing on audit? But never mind. That's the way it's fallen. So what we're trying to do is we feel that the districts feel that because it's being rushed, this is our position as of tomorrow. Well, once we know from the minister later in January, and we've had more time to discuss it, it's quite possible I'll come back to you in 3 weeks or so with a workable solution. That's what we've got to do. It's not that we're against it. It's how do we do it for the benefit of the people of Torridge? And that's what we need to think about. Forget about the politics. That was something I said on Friday when it became slightly political. I can find better things to do than start political arguments. It's what is good for the people of Torridge. We are going to have to go down this route, but we need to know where we're going. That's the thing. Always have in your back of your mind, not option 4, but the idea of where you want to end up.
Thank you. Councillor Haynes, I think you had your hand up first.
Sorry, thank you, Chair. I keep on reading again and again this line in the District Council's network document. The government will not impose reorganisation in any areas. It will write to all principal councils and encourage initial proposals. Well, we haven't agreed on proposals. So, I mean, the risk of not recognising realpolitik as outlined by Councillor Newton, is it likely we will be going from here, given this statement that we're possibly going to vote on in a minute? What will be given that statement there? The government will not impose reorganisation. I don't quite understand.
In the white paper, it does say, the government, if areas don't come with proposals, they reserve the right to impose reorganisation. That's what it says in the white paper. And that's what the expectation will be. So if we don't, as Councillor Newton talked about, if you're not inside the tent making and trying to shape your own arrangements, you'll be told what to do.
Councillor Lavelle, I think you were raising the hand.
I came to this meeting very befuddled, and despite everybody's best efforts, I remain befuddled.
Sorry, can you speak up?
Sorry, I came
Councillor
to this
Lavelle.
meeting feeling very befuddled, and despite everybody's best efforts, I remain befuddled. And my main befuddlement is that I can't see where Torridge fits into any of this with anybody, because from what everybody said, nobody wants us, you know, Exeter's looking this way, Hiller's looking the other way, Torbay is looking the other way, and we're North Devon, I mean, and North Devon and us, you know, which really an obvious one maybe, aren't big enough. And I can't see anybody who wants us. You know, I don't know that it's, so I just don't see where we fit into all this, because the government's sort of done this, oh, we'll have 500,000. Well, I don't think they've really looked at the map, have they? Or, you know, got the least idea of how the counties work.
I think you're looking at the dates again, is that the initial thing for tomorrow is about do county go ahead with the election and what people think. The main thing about where we fit in will be later in January. Now, I know we're soon be halfway through it, which is the crazy situation. But we will be, I've said several times this evening, as of Monday, we're starting to work with the other districts, and we will be working with our neighbours in North Devon. We are hoping that the power breakers, in effect, which is Plymouth and Exeter, depending on where they go, they will start putting forward what they want. What they need us for is not because they worried about us, but they'll be looking for numbers to get their numbers to where they want to be. And what we have to say is, if you want our numbers, what's in it for us? It's as simple as that. And obviously, we'll wait to see what the county comes forward with a little bit. More, I think, with the induction of the CCA, which in a way, we worked as Team Devon with county, it worked really successfully. But it's just the thing with the CCA that's troubled people is about the districts not having well, we will have seats on the main committee now because we fought for them. But there will be this question of who decides what voting rights we got. And once that becomes clearer, that may make things better. But it really is a question of don't try second guessing where we're going to be at the end of January until we know A, what the government's going to tell us from the minister, and B, what these big groups in Devon are fighting for their own quarter.
Thank you very much. I believe Councillor Mrs. Bright was next, and then I'll come to Councillor Lennon.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I have a real problem with this thing I've heard time and again in the council, which is we've got two options. We either sit back and do nothing, we lose the money, or we have to go for this thing as fast as humanly possible without actually debating it. I've heard that argument so many times. I heard it from the county councillor who visited us yesterday at Great Torrington Town Council. We've got these two options. We either do nothing and wait for something to be imposed upon us, or we act now as fast as we can. And I don't think that they are the two options. I disagree entirely that they are our two options. I'm thinking about these, we're trying to stick to these proposals from the board, so that's what I want to speak about. I don't think that Devon, I cannot see, based on the white paper, how Devon is a suitable candidate to join the Devolution Priority Programme. I don't understand how we can join that. This paper that's come out 3.5 weeks ago, this sudden idea that we can be a mayoral county authority, as this 1.5 million group block out of nowhere, how can we suddenly say, yeah, we're absolutely ready for that, let's go, go, go? We're not ready for that in any way. I don't accept that. The second point about the election, there is no justification whatsoever for delaying Devon County Council elections that are currently planned for May 2025, other than for current county councillors to continue in their roles unchallenged. The residents of Devon have a right to choose their elected representatives, whether they serve for 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year. If we didn't agree with that principle, we wouldn't have by-elections, because we just say, what's the point in in paying for that? Because they're only going to be around for a year. That is not how our democracy works. We have elections, there are fixed points in the year so that we can choose our representatives and don't get stuck with people in periods of time that we haven't chosen. So I don't agree with that move. And then finally, on a point that's not on these, this whole thing makes me worry hugely for the great work that Torridge District Council has done and is doing. I worry for things like our economic strategy, which has so much potential, and you may well get lost in where we're going with this. I worry for things like Active Torridge, of which we can be so proud, and then which would be thrown into question, I think, thrown into doubt, especially if we were to become that single unitary council for Devon, where we'd be lost in this huge council. And as Councillor Bell says, you know, who's going to care what's going on in Torridge in that huge council? And so that's my views on these points, and I fully support us going ahead with this recommendation. Thank you.
Very much. Councillor Leather, I think it was next.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I've never been a supporter of unitary, really, because it takes away from the local area democracy even further away through unitary. But we've got to face the fact that this government got a thumping great majority of 180. They can do whatever they want, and they will do whatever they want. They want to impose this all over the country on areas that haven't got elected mayors. It'll happen down here. I don't accept what Councillor Brenton said, what Tudor Evans says. Plymouth's expanded slightly, they'll never have the numbers. Neither will Exeter expand and have the numbers necessary. We've got this combined authority, CCA, on the horizon or happening. It's been confirmed by the Labour government, by the governor, that that will happen. But it's a foundation thing, and it does say foundation, because the view is to have a larger unitary, and probably it'll be the peninsula, it'll be Cornwall and Devon, and Plymouth will join in with that. And actually, I saw something this afternoon that said Plymouth were angling to get that down the road. It is down the road. The other thing is I'm not going to support is not postponed in the county council elections. I think they should be postponed. What is the point? I can understand the Liberal Democrats not wanting to postpone it, but why? What is the point now of having May this year county council elections when all this is in flux and happening? There's no point, because next year we'll be having shadow unitary elections of one kind or another. I am sorry, because town and parish councils are still going to be in existence. District councils will be gone. This will probably be the last district council. I don't think there'll be a unit in place before our term in 27 comes round for another election. So my big beef with all of this anyway, and always has been, it's moving democracy further away from the local area. And I do resent that, and I'm sorry for that, but the government, with their thumping majority, want to impose their view on the country, and whatever we say or do, or the county council say or do, because they'll be done away with, isn't going to have a scrap. In the end, will not make any difference. But I do think they should postpone the county council elections this year. I do support them. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Newton, I believe you want
Chair, thank you. Can I ask a question? Are we required by government to submit a letter tomorrow, 10th of January?
No.
Or is it actually just the higher tier authorities, the county council? So are we actually voting on whether we send a letter or not because we think we want to send one, or are we actually required to send one tomorrow? First of all,
The only requirement for tomorrow is for, as I said earlier, upper tier authorities, county councils to submit a letter of intent to move to greater devolution and request that county elections are postponed. The idea about districts sending a letter is being a subject matter of discussion around district council leaders.
The one caveat, which hasn't been covered in the Devon County stuff, is that it has to have full agreement of those other councils. So the districts have said, well, we don't agree, therefore we do a letter saying we don't agree.
We heard from Councillor Brenton. We know, because it has been in the public domain, that Exeter have notified their intent to want to become a unitary a while ago. We also know that actually Exeter have been told by ministers that because they are a developing area and because they can easily expand to the east of the M5 anyway, and taking in the science park and the airport, etc. Because they're a developing area, that actually the 500,000 could be a lot less to start with. Now, there is government have a keen interest in getting an Exeter unitary to add to the Plymouth unitary, because the unitaries will have significant impact at the higher strategic authority. Exeter unitary, good chance that it will be dominated by the party that form government at the moment, likewise Plymouth. There are no votes anywhere else in the southwest really for that party. So there is a macro political motive between actually getting Exeter as a unitary. The thinking, my understanding from Devon, is that actually by volunteering to go in the first phase, we actually stand a better chance of actually having a different unitary structure than having Exeter as a unitary. For us, I believe, here in Torridge, Exeter as a unitary on its own would be hugely damaging, because we have to be linked to Exeter some way. Our communications run that way, our senior level of education runs that way, the rail link runs that way from Barnstaple, etc. And without the economic base of either Exeter or Plymouth, we can be very proud of our area, but that doesn't actually get us round the larger considerations of what drives financially, economy, etc., etc. So I think we should have albeit political, but I believe we should have a clear view that actually we don't want, it's not good for us, for Exeter to go on its own, and the consequences that come up. And I note the fact that we don't actually have to send a letter at all. We're not required to. This is our initiative that we want to send a letter. Government are not requiring us to send a letter. I'm just wondering whether we should be saying that we don't send a letter.
Councillor Huntley, you've been very patient.
So I wanted to respond to Councillor Newton's earlier comments, which I made quite a long time ago now. So you said a lot has changed. A lot has changed, and a lot has changed since the last county elections. It's clear that the Conservatives are clinging on. They don't want a county election because they know many of them will be voted out. We need to uphold democracy, as Councillor Bright spoke about earlier. We need to let people vote for who they want representing them, taking this forward, taking them forward. We're not opposing plans. He said that we're opposing plans. We're not. But we want to give these opportunities due consideration to work out what is right for our communities. We don't want to rush through with something without any consideration given to what this will mean for our whole area. I fear huge decisions are being made from an urban base, I'm talking about central government here, with no understanding of rural areas and rural communities, as reflected in changes that are being made elsewhere too, with different policies that are being implemented. And I'd like to request a recorded vote, please.
We do need 5 other members to support the fact that we called for a recorded vote. Can we have any other? Yeah, that's absolutely fine. And it would be any other vote? So that would be a vote on Ken's proposal, is that correct? It is a proposal. So it's been proposed, it has been seconded. Do you have any other comments? Sorry, yes.
Chairman, if we do not vote for this proposal as it's been put, we shall end up being a voice in the wilderness. Whether we like it or not, this government is going to do what it's going to do. And either we've got to work with our fellow councillors in the county of Devon, in the districts, and run with them so that it's shown as unanimous that we're not happy with things. The alternative will be, it'll still go ahead. And the other Devon districts, when it comes to a meeting, will say, well, they silly bees up in Torridge wouldn't work with us. Don't give them anything. It's cutting off your nose to spite your face if you go against this proposal.
Thank you. I suggest we go to the vote. Can we organise?
Councillor Andrews. Councillor Back.
For.
Councillor Chris Bright.
For.
Councillor Lauren Bright. For. Councillor Cottle Hunkin.
For.
Councillor Dart.
For.
Councillor Elliott.
Abstain.
Councillor Hames.
For.
Councillor Harding.
Abstain.
Councillor Hawkins.
For.
Councillor Heppel.
For.
Councillor Hicks.
For.
Councillor Hodgson.
For.
Councillor James.
For.
Councillor Leather.
James.
Councillor Rebel.
For.
Councillor Newton.
Abstain.
Councillor Pennington.
For.
Councillor Piper.
For.
Councillor Shepherd. For. Councillor Smith.
For.
Councillor Thomas.
For.
Councillor Wheatley.
For.
It's 19 for, 1 against and 3 abstentions, Chair.
Thank you. So the that is carried. I would like to thank everyone for their attendance tonight. It's been an interesting discussion, and it's the beginning of many, I'm sure, in the future. Thank you for your attendance. I wish you a safe journey home in good weather. Good night.